The water's icy grip closed around Brooke Harper's lungs as she sank deeper into the pool, her vision blurring beneath the crystalline surface. A stupid mistake, one misstep on the slick tile, a heavy camera bag dragging her down, and now her life was literally flashing before her eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to end, not during a routine photography assignment at some lavish estate. As consciousness began to slip away, a powerful silhouette cut through the water above her, strong arms reaching down into the depths. Warren Sullivan had been watching the photographer from his office window, irritated at first by the intrusion on his privacy. When he saw her fall, something primal took over. Without hesitation, he sprinted through his mansion and dove into the pool fully clothed, his custom Italian suit be damned. He reached Brooke just as her eyes closed, gripping her beneath her arms and kicking powerfully toward the surface. Breaking through, he gasped for air, pulling her limp form to the pool's edge. "Come on, breathe." Warren laid her on the concrete, tilting her head back and checking for breathing. Nothing. He began chest compressions, pushing with controlled force. "Don't you dare die on my property," he muttered, a strange panic rising in his throat. This woman was a stranger, yet her lifeless form triggered something visceral in him. After what seemed like an eternity, Brooke coughed violently, water spewing from her mouth as she rolled to her side, gasping and disoriented. "There you go," Warren soothed, relief flooding through him. "Just breathe." Brooke's vision gradually cleared, revealing a soaking wet man kneeling beside her. His dark hair clung to his forehead, water dripping from his chiseled jawline. Despite his drenched appearance, something about him screamed wealth and authority. "What happened?" she croaked, her throat raw. "You fell in. Took a pretty good knock to the head on the way down," Warren explained, gesturing to the side of her temple where a bruise was already forming. "I pulled you out." Brooke tried to sit up, but dizziness overwhelmed her. "My camera is at the bottom of my pool," he finished. "Let's worry about that later. Right now, we need to get you checked out." Brooke questioned, finally taking in her surroundings. The Olympic-sized pool sat in the center of what appeared to be a private paradise, lush gardens, a cascading waterfall feature, and beyond that, a mansion that belonged in a luxury magazine. "Who are you?" A slight smile crossed Warren's face as he helped her to a sitting position. "Warren Sullivan." "This is my home." Recognition dawned on her face. Warren Sullivan, real estate mogul, hotel chain owner, and reportedly worth north of $500 million. She was supposed to be photographing his estate for Luxury Living magazine, not nearly drowning in his pool. "I'm Brooke Harper," she managed. "I'm the photographer from I Know Who You Are," he interrupted, his voice softening. "My assistant arranged everything, though I don't recall swimming being on today's itinerary." Despite her situation, Brooke found herself chuckling, which quickly turned into another coughing fit. Warren's hand was immediately on her back, steadying her. "Let's get you inside. My doctor can be here in 20 minutes. "That's not necessary," Brooke protested. "I'm fine, really." Warren's expression turned serious. "You weren't breathing when I pulled you out." "You're getting checked by a doctor, that's non-negotiable." Before she could argue further, he was helping her to her feet. As she stood, her legs buckled beneath her. In one smooth motion, Warren swept her into his arms, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. "Put me down," she demanded, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "I'm dripping wet." "So am I," he pointed out calmly. "And you're in no condition to walk." Brooke wanted to protest further, but the strength in his arms and the steady beat of his heart against her side was oddly comforting. She relaxed slightly, allowing herself to be carried across the immaculate grounds and into the mansion. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior: high ceilings, marble floors, artwork that likely cost more than she'd make in a decade. He carried her through to a guest suite bigger than her entire apartment. "Clarissa will bring you some dry clothes," Warren said, carefully setting her down on a plush sofa. "My doctor will be here shortly. Do you need anything? Water? Tea?" "Just my dignity back," Brooke mumbled, wringing out her hair. A genuine smile broke across Warren's face, transforming his serious features. "I'm afraid that's still at the bottom of the pool with your camera." As if on cue, a middle-aged woman appeared with a stack of clothes and towels. "Mr. Sullivan, your clothes are laid out in your room. I've called Dr. Winters. He's on his way." "Thank you, Clarissa. Please take care of Miss Harper. I'll be back shortly." With that, he disappeared, leaving Brooke to process the surreal turn of events. 20 minutes ago, she was setting up equipment for what should have been a routine photo shoot. Now she was sitting in Warren Sullivan's guest suite, having been rescued by the man himself. "He never does that, you know," Clarissa commented as she handed Brooke a fluffy towel. "Does what?" "Gets involved personally. Usually he'd have security handle any situation." There was something knowing in the housekeeper's eyes. "Must be your lucky day." Brooke wasn't sure about that. But as she changed into the dry clothes designer items with tags still attached, she couldn't help but wonder what had possessed one of Boston's most reclusive millionaires to dive in after her. When Warren returned, he'd changed into dark jeans and a simple white button-down shirt that somehow looked anything but simple on his athletic frame. His still damp hair was combed back, emphasizing the strong lines of his face. "The doctor is here," he announced, stepping aside to reveal a distinguished older man carrying a medical bag. The examination was thorough but quick. Dr. Winters checked her pupils, her breathing, and asked a series of questions to assess her cognitive function. "You're lucky Mr. Sullivan acted so quickly," the doctor concluded, packing up his equipment. "Near drowning can lead to secondary drowning hours later. I'd recommend observation for the next 24 hours. "I'll make sure of it," Warren stated before Brooke could respond. After the doctor left, Brooke turned to him. "Thank you for saving my life, but I really should go home. I can call a cab." Warren shook his head. "You heard the doctor. You need observation. You'll stay here tonight." "I can't impose. It's not an imposition. This house has 12 bedrooms, Miss Harper. I think we can spare one." Brooke studied him, trying to understand his motivation. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me." Something flickered across Warren's face, an emotion she couldn't quite identify. "Let's just say I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning," he said quietly. Then, as if catching himself revealing too much, he straightened. "Besides, if anything happened to you after leaving my care, the PR nightmare would be substantial." Brooke smiled despite herself. "Always the businessman." "Always," he agreed, though his eyes suggested otherwise. "Now, are you hungry? Clarissa makes an exceptional soup that would be perfect for your throat." Before Brooke could answer, Warren's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowning. "I need to take this." "Make yourself comfortable. I won't be long." Left alone in the luxurious suite, Brooke wandered to the window, gazing out at the pool where she'd nearly died. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden light across the water. Her camera case had been retrieved and placed on a nearby table, the equipment undoubtedly ruined. "Great job, Brooke," she muttered to herself. "First big assignment with the magazine, and you nearly drown yourself." She was still berating herself when Warren returned, his expression troubled. "Everything okay?" she asked. He seemed surprised by her concern. "Just business. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." He gestured to her camera bag. "My staff retrieved your equipment. I'm afraid the camera didn't survive its swim." Brooke groaned. "That camera cost me 3 months' rent." "I'll replace it." "Absolutely not," she said firmly. "It was my clumsiness that caused this, not you." Warren raised an eyebrow, clearly unaccustomed to being refused. "I insist." "And I decline," Brooke countered. "I appreciate the rescue and the hospitality, but I don't accept charity, Mr. Sullivan." A slow smile spread across his face. "Warren, and it's not charity, it's responsibility. My pool, my property." Brooke was about to argue further when Clarissa appeared, announcing dinner was ready. Warren offered his arm with mock formality, and after a moment's hesitation, Brooke took it, allowing him to guide her to the dining room. Dinner was surprisingly informal: soup as promised, fresh bread, and a light salad. The conversation flowed more easily than Brooke expected, touching on her career, his business ventures, and mutual interests in architecture and design. "So why photography?" Warren asked as they finished their meal. Brooke considered the question. "I like capturing moments of beauty people might otherwise miss. There's something magical about freezing time in a frame." She smiled, a bit embarrassed by her earnestness. "That probably sounds cheesy." "Not at all," Warren replied thoughtfully. "In my world, everything's about the next acquisition, the next development. Sometimes I forget to pause and appreciate what's already there." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Brooke was the first to look away, suddenly conscious of the situation. She was having dinner with Warren Sullivan, a man whose net worth exceeded the GDP of some small countries, a man who had literally breathed life back into her lungs hours earlier. "I should probably rest," she said, breaking the moment. "It's been quite a day." Warren nodded, calling for Clarissa to show Brooke back to her room. At the doorway, he paused. "Sleep well, Brooke. If you need anything during the night, anything at all, don't hesitate to call. The house phone connects directly to my quarters." "Thank you," she replied softly, "for everything." As she settled into the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced, Brooke tried to process the day's events. Nearly drowning had been terrifying, but something else left her feeling breathless: the way Warren had looked at her over dinner, as if seeing something in her no one else had bothered to notice before. Sleep claimed her quickly, exhaustion from her ordeal pulling her under. But in her dreams, she was still underwater, not drowning this time, but floating peacefully as a strong pair of arms held her safely against the current. Morning light streamed through the windows when Brooke awoke, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The events of the previous day came rushing back, and she sat up, surprised to find she felt relatively normal aside from a slight tenderness in her chest from the CPR. A soft knock at the door preceded Clarissa's entrance with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Harper. Mr. Sullivan asked me to bring this up. He had an early meeting but wanted to ensure you had everything you needed." "That's very thoughtful," Brooke replied, disappointed despite herself. She'd hoped to thank Warren again before leaving. "He also left this for you," Clarissa added, placing a small envelope on the tray. After the housekeeper departed, Brooke opened the envelope to find a handwritten note. "Brooke, business called me away, but please make yourself at home for as long as needed. Clarissa will arrange transportation when you're ready to leave. I've taken the liberty of scheduling a follow-up with Dr. Winters tomorrow. The address is below. I've also ordered a replacement camera. Before you object, consider it a business expense. I still need those photos for the magazine." Until next time, Warren Brooke read the note twice, unsure whether to be touched by his thoughtfulness or irritated by his presumption. The man was used to getting his way, that much was clear. After breakfast, she dressed in her own clothes, which had been cleaned and pressed overnight. Gathering her belongings, she called for Clarissa to arrange her ride home. "Mr. Sullivan also asked me to give you this," Clarissa said, handing her a business card with a personal number scrawled on the back. "He said you might have questions about the camera when it arrives." Brooke tucked the card into her pocket, thanked the housekeeper, and departed the Sullivan estate, trying to convince herself the entire experience had been a bizarre anomaly in her otherwise ordinary life. 3 days later, a package arrived at her apartment. Inside was the latest model of the camera she'd lost, not just a replacement, but a significant upgrade along with accessories she'd only dreamed of owning. A note was attached, for capturing moments of beauty. Brooke stared at the equipment, torn between professional excitement and stubborn pride. After debating with herself for an hour, she finally picked up her phone and dialed the number on Warren's card. He answered on the second ring. "Warren Sullivan." "This camera costs more than my car," Brooke said without preamble. A chuckle came through the line. "Hello to you too, Brooke. I can't accept this." "You can and you will. Consider it payment in advance." "Payment for what?" "I still need those photos of my property," he replied. "Unless you've decided drowning was preferable to completing the assignment." Despite herself, Brooke laughed. "You're impossible, so I've been told. How are you feeling?" "Better. The follow-up with Dr. Winters went well." "Good." There was a pause, and when Warren spoke again, his tone was more serious. "I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening," Brooke replied cautiously. "I've been reviewing your portfolio. You're talented, far too talented to be shooting real estate for lifestyle magazines." Brooke felt a flush of pleasure at the compliment. "Thank you, but those assignments pay the bills. What if I commissioned you for something more substantial? I'm launching a new hotel in the Berkshires next month, a boutique property focused on local art and culture. I need someone to capture the essence of the place, the surrounding landscapes, the details others might miss." It sounded like a dream project, exactly the kind of work Brooke had always wanted to do. "Why me? You must know dozens of established photographers." "None who see beauty in the details the way you do," Warren answered simply. "Your work has heart. That's what this project needs." Brooke hesitated. The opportunity was incredible, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was charity disguised as business. "I don't want special treatment because of what happened." "This isn't about the pool, Brooke. This is about your talent." His voice softened. "Though I can't claim the circumstances of our meeting haven't influenced my interest in working with you." There was something in his tone that made her heart beat faster. "I'd want fair market rate, no special pricing." "Absolutely. I'll have my assistant draw up a contract and send it over." "I haven't said yes yet," Brooke pointed out. "But you will," Warren replied confidently. "The project starts next weekend. I'll be personally overseeing the final touches on the property. You'd stay on site, all expenses covered, of course." "You seem very certain I'll agree." "I'm hopeful," he corrected. "There's a difference." After they hung up, Brooke sat looking at the new camera, turning Warren's offer over in her mind. The project was exactly what she needed professionally. The fact that it meant spending more time with Warren Sullivan, well, that was something she wasn't quite ready to analyze too closely. True to his word, a contract arrived via courier the following day. The terms were more than generous, the scope of work challenging but exciting. Brooke signed without further hesitation, committing to the weekend in the Berkshires. The drive to the Berkshires that Friday was beautiful, autumn colors painting the landscape in vibrant hues. Brooke followed the GPS directions to a secluded property nestled among rolling hills, a renovated historic mansion transformed into what appeared to be the epitome of luxury accommodations. As she pulled into the circular drive, Warren emerged from the main entrance, dressed casually in jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes appear even more intensely blue than she remembered. "You found it," he greeted her, opening her car door. "Welcome to Sullivan Haven." "It's stunning," Brooke replied honestly, taking in the traditional New England architecture enhanced with modern elements. "The setting is perfect. Wait until you see inside. We've preserved the original woodwork while updating everything else." There was undisguised pride in his voice. "This is my favorite property to date." As he gave her a tour, Brooke began to understand why. Unlike his other hotels, which catered to business travelers with sleek, contemporary designs, Sullivan Haven was warm, inviting, and deeply personal. Local artwork adorned the walls, custom furniture showcased regional craftsmanship, and each space flowed naturally into the next. "This doesn't feel like a hotel," Brooke observed as they entered a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive stone fireplace. "It feels like someone's home," Warren's expression softened. "That's exactly what I was going for. My grandparents had a place not far from here when I was growing up. Those summers were—" He trailed off, then cleared his throat. "Well, they were important to me." It was the first genuinely personal detail he'd shared, and Brooke found herself wanting to know more. "So this is a passion project, you could say that." Warren gestured to the stairs. "Let me show you to your room so you can get settled. The staff won't arrive until Monday, so it's just us for the weekend. I hope that's not uncomfortable for you." Brooke ignored the flutter in her stomach at his words. "I'm here to work, Mr. Sullivan." "Warren," he corrected with a smile. "And yes, you're here to work. But I hope you'll also enjoy yourself." He led her to a corner suite on the second floor. "This is the Maple Room, one of our premium accommodations." The space was breathtaking. A king-sized four-poster bed dominated one wall, while large windows offered views of the mountains. A sitting area with plush chairs faced a private fireplace, and the bathroom featured a clawfoot tub and separate rainfall shower. "This is excessive," Brooke breathed. "It's the room I want photographed," Warren replied with a shrug. "Makes sense for you to stay in it." "Right, of course." Brooke set down her camera bag, trying to maintain professional composure despite the luxury surroundings. "I'll let you settle in. Dinner's at 7 in the main dining room, nothing formal, just some local specialties I thought you might enjoy. We can discuss the shooting schedule then." After he left, Brooke unpacked, then spent an hour exploring the room with her camera, capturing details that caught her eye: the hand-carved bedposts, the way afternoon light played across the antique writing desk, the view framed perfectly by window casings. She was so absorbed in her work that she nearly lost track of time, hurrying to freshen up before dinner. Choosing a simple navy dress from her limited wardrobe, she made her way downstairs, following the scent of something delicious to the dining room. Warren was waiting, a bottle of wine already open on the table. He stood as she entered, his eyes appreciative as they took in her appearance. "You look lovely," he said simply. "Thank you." Brooke took the seat he offered. "Something smells amazing." "Local fare. I had a chef prepare some meals for us before leaving. Tonight is maple-glazed salmon with autumn vegetables." Warren poured wine for both of them. "I hope you don't mind dining alone with me. I could have arranged for staff to stay on, but this gives you a chance to experience the property as a guest would," Brooke finished for him. "It makes perfect sense." He smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his features. "Exactly. Though I admit, the company is a nice bonus." The meal was exceptional, the conversation surprisingly easy. Warren asked thoughtful questions about her photography background, and Brooke found herself sharing more than she'd intended about her journey: the art school dreams deferred for practical reasons, the struggle to build a portfolio while working retail jobs, the recent breakthrough with magazine assignments. "You've worked hard to get where you are," Warren observed. "I respect that," says the man who built a real estate empire before 40, Brooke countered. Something flickered in Warren's eyes. "I had advantages you didn't. Family connections, inherited wealth. And you multiplied that inheritance many times over," Brooke pointed out. "That takes skill and determination, regardless of where you started." Warren studied her, seeming surprised by her assessment. "Most people assume I just coasted on my family name. Do I strike you as most people?" Brooke asked, holding his gaze. "No," he replied softly. "You certainly don't." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was ready to name. Finally, Warren cleared his throat, turning the conversation to the photography schedule for the weekend. They planned to start early the next morning, capturing the property in the golden hour light, then work through various spaces throughout the day. By the time they finished dessert, a decadent apple tart sourced from a local bakery, Brooke felt a mixture of professional excitement and personal anticipation that had little to do with photography. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they finished their coffee. "And for this opportunity. This project means a lot to me." "I'm the one who should be thanking you," Warren replied. "Your vision is exactly what this place needs." As Brooke stood to leave, Warren stepped closer, his hand lightly touching her arm. "I'm glad you're here, Brooke, not just for the photographs." The warmth of his touch lingered as she returned to her room, her mind replaying their conversation, analyzing his words. There was a clear attraction between them, she wasn't naive enough to deny that. But professional boundaries existed for a reason, and mixing business with pleasure rarely ended well. Still, as she drifted off to sleep in the luxurious bed, Brooke couldn't help wondering what might develop between them once the business portion of their relationship was concluded. Morning came with perfect photography conditions, soft, diffuse light filtering through a light mist that clung to the surrounding hills. Brooke was already on the grounds with her camera when Warren found her, 2 travel mugs in hand. "Coffee," he offered, passing her one. "You're up early." "The light is perfect," Brooke explained, gesturing to the property. "The way the mist is wrapping around the building, it's magical." Warren surveyed the scene, seeing it through her eyes. "Yes, it is. I've always loved mornings here." They worked well together throughout the day, Warren giving her space to create but remaining available to answer questions or provide context for specific features. His knowledge of the property was encyclopedic, from the origin of each piece of woodwork to the stories behind local artwork. "This isn't just business for you," Brooke observed as they broke for lunch on the terrace. "You really love this place." Warren contemplated his response. "I spent the happiest times of my childhood nearby. When the property came up for sale, it felt like fate." He gazed out at the mountains. "My parents were rarely around when I was growing up, always traveling, always working. But summers with my grandparents were different. They taught me to appreciate simple things: fishing in the creek, hiking these hills, reading by the fire during summer storms." "They sound wonderful," Brooke said softly. "They were. My grandfather was a carpenter, built custom furniture. That's why I've incorporated so much local craftsmanship into this place." Warren's expression grew distant. "He died when I was in college. My grandmother followed a year later." "So this hotel is a tribute to them," Brooke realized. Warren looked slightly embarrassed. "I suppose it is, though the board of directors thinks it's simply diversifying our portfolio into the luxury leisure market." Brooke laughed. "Your secret's safe with me. I know it is." Warren held her gaze. "That's why I wanted you for this project, Brooke. You see beyond the surface." The afternoon continued with more photography, Warren occasionally suggesting angles or details he thought important. By early evening, Brooke had captured most of the interior spaces, leaving the grounds and some specialty shots for the following day. "I think we've earned a break," Warren declared as the sun began to set. There's a hiking trail behind the property that leads to a perfect overlook. We could catch the sunset if we hurry. The spontaneous invitation surprised Brooke, but she found herself agreeing. They set out on the wooded path, Warren leading the way with confident familiarity. "You've been here before," Brooke observed, noticing how he navigated the trail without hesitation. "Many times. This was my thinking spot as a teenager. Whenever life felt overwhelming, I'd come here to clear my head." The trail opened to a rocky outcropping that provided a sweeping view of the valley below, now bathed in golden light as the sun descended toward the horizon. Brooke instinctively reached for her camera, then stopped herself. Some moments deserve to be experienced rather than captured. "It's beautiful," she said instead, moving to stand beside Warren at the edge. "Yes," he agreed, though when she glanced over, he was looking at her, not the view. The air between them seemed to vibrate with unspoken tension. Brooke knew they were approaching a line one that once crossed would change everything. "Warren," she began, unsure what she even wanted to say. "I know," he replied, somehow understanding her uncertainty. "This is complicated. You're here to work, I'm your client, there are boundaries." Brooke nodded, relieved he understood. "Exactly." "And if those boundaries weren't there," Warren asked quietly, "if we had met under different circumstances?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Brooke considered her answer carefully. "If we'd met differently, I think I'd still be trying to figure you out," she admitted. "You're not what I expected, Warren Sullivan." A smile tugged at his lips. "What did you expect? Someone more, I don't know, entitled, aloof. Not someone who jumps into pools to save drowning photographers or gets sentimental about his grandparents' influence." Warren laughed softly. "I'm plenty entitled and aloof in the boardroom, ask anyone, but out here," he gestured to the mountains. "Out here, I'm just the kid who used to fish with his grandfather." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley, Brooke felt something shift between them, not crossing boundaries, but acknowledging what might exist beyond them. They hiked back in comfortable silence, the path now illuminated by the flashlight on Warren's phone. Dinner that night was more relaxed, the conversation flowing naturally between professional discussions of the next day's shooting schedule and personal stories from their respective lives. When they finally parted for the night, Warren walked Brooke to her door. "Thank you for today," he said. "Not just the photographs, but for seeing this place the way I do." "Thank you for showing it to me," Brooke replied. She hesitated, then added, "and for sharing why it matters to you." Warren's eyes held hers for a long moment. Then, with visible restraint, he stepped back. "Good night, Brooke." "Good night, Warren." Inside her room, Brooke spent an hour reviewing the day's photographs, impressed by how the images had captured not just the physical beauty of the property, but something of its spirit as well. Warren's passion for the place had influenced her perspective, allowing her to see beyond the luxury appointments to the heart of what made it special. The next day brought more perfect weather and productive work. They completed the exterior shots in the morning, then focused on details and vignettes throughout the afternoon. By late day, Brooke had everything she needed and more. "I think that's a wrap," she announced as they reviewed the final shots on her laptop. "Unless there's something specific you want that I've missed." Warren shook his head, clearly impressed by what he saw on the screen. "These are perfect, Brooke. Better than I imagined." As she packed her equipment, Brooke felt an unexpected sadness. Their weekend was ending, the project complete. Tomorrow she would return to Boston, to her regular life, and Warren Sullivan would become a client she'd worked with once. "Will you stay for dinner?" Warren asked, seeming to sense her thoughts. "One last meal before you head back tomorrow. "I'd like that," Brooke replied honestly. Dinner was more elaborate than previous nights. Warren had prepared it himself, revealing yet another unexpected side to his character. "You cook?" Brooke asked, impressed by the perfectly seared steaks and roasted vegetables. "Another skill from my grandparents," he explained. "My grandmother believed every person should know how to prepare a decent meal." "She'd be proud," Brooke assured him, savoring a bite. "This is delicious." After dinner, Warren suggested a nightcap by the fire in the library. The space was even more inviting in the evening, the flames casting a warm glow over the room. "When does the hotel officially open?" Brooke asked, settling into one of the leather armchairs. "3 weeks from now. We're already booked solid for the first month." Warren handed her a glass of whiskey before taking the seat opposite. "Your photographs will be featured prominently in our marketing materials, with full credit, of course. I hope that leads to more work for you." "That's very generous." "It's good business," Warren countered. "You're talented, Brooke. You deserve recognition." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire and sipping their drinks. Finally, Warren spoke again, his voice softer than before. "I'd like to see you again, after this project is complete and I'm no longer your client." Brooke looked up, meeting his gaze. "You would?" "Yes." Warren leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I haven't felt this connected to someone in a very long time, perhaps ever." The admission sent warmth spreading through Brooke's chest that had nothing to do with the whiskey or the fire. "I feel it too," she confessed. "But Warren, our worlds are so different. You're—" She gestured vaguely, encompassing the luxury surroundings. "Rich," he supplied with a raised eyebrow. "I was going to say established," Brooke corrected. "You have this whole empire." "I'm still trying to make rent most months." "And that matters to you, doesn't it matter to you? The disparity," Warren considered this. "What matters to me is how I feel when I'm with you, how you see me not as Warren Sullivan, the CEO, but just as Warren." He set his glass down, moving to kneel beside her chair. "Money complicates things, yes, but it doesn't define who we are or what we could be to each other." Brooke searched his face, finding nothing but sincerity. "This is crazy. We barely know each other." "Then let's change that," he said simply. "No rush, no pressure. Just dinner in Boston next week when we're both back to real life. See where it goes." Put that way, it seemed so reasonable, so possible. "Dinner," Brooke agreed. "I'd like that." The tension that had built between them all weekend suddenly crystallized into something more definite: potential, possibility, promise. Warren reached up, his hand gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was electric, sending shivers down Brooke's spine. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned closer. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning a beginning rather than a culmination. When they parted, Brooke saw her own wonder reflected in Warren's eyes. "Worth waiting for," he murmured. They stayed by the fire for hours, talking, learning each other's stories. Warren shared more about his childhood, the pressure of family expectations, the loneliness of his position. Brooke told him about her parents' early skepticism of her artistic ambitions, her struggle to find her voice as a photographer, her determination to succeed on her own terms. When they finally said goodnight, it was with the certainty that whatever had started between them was just beginning to unfold. The drive back to Boston the next day felt charged with anticipation. They'd agreed to meet for dinner the following Friday, a proper date, with no pretense of business. Brooke spent the week editing photographs and trying not to overthink what was happening with Warren. Friday arrived with a flurry of texts confirming details. Warren suggested a small bistro in the North End, intimate, but not ostentatious, a place where they could talk without interruption. When Brooke arrived, Warren was waiting outside, looking somewhat different in the urban setting, still confident, but more guarded than he'd been in the Berkshires. The moment he saw her, however, his expression opened, warmth replacing reserve. "You look beautiful," he said, greeting her with a brief kiss that somehow felt both familiar and thrillingly new. Dinner was perfect, delicious food, excellent wine, and conversation that flowed effortlessly from professional topics to personal stories. Brooke found herself laughing more than she had in months, drawn to Warren's dry wit and thoughtful observations. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Warren challenged as they shared dessert, a decadent chocolate torte. Brooke considered the request. "I almost gave up photography last year," she admitted. "I was so tired of struggling, of trying to convince people my work had value. I actually applied for a corporate marketing position, steady pay, benefits." "What stopped you?" "I got rejected," Brooke laughed. "The universe has a sense of humor. The day I received the rejection email, I also got a call from Luxury Living about my first major assignment." Warren smiled. "Which eventually led you to my pool." "Exactly." Brooke pointed her fork at him. "Your turn. Tell me something no one knows." Warren was quiet for a moment. "I'm lonely most of the time," he finally said, his voice low. "I'm surrounded by people all day, employees, business associates, supposed friends, but very few of them see past the money and the position." He met her eyes. "Until you." The honesty in his admission touched something deep in Brooke. On impulse, she reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "I see you, Warren." After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting off the harbor. When Warren suggested a nightcap at his penthouse, Brooke hesitated only briefly before agreeing. The penthouse was exactly what she'd expected: sleek, modern, with spectacular views of the city. Yet there were unexpected touches of warmth: books scattered on side tables, a chess set mid-game, family photographs displayed alongside modern art. "Would you like a tour?" Warren offered. "I would." As he showed her through the space, Brooke noticed something interesting. While the public areas were impeccably designed, clearly meant to impress visitors, the private spaces were more personal. His office contained a small woodworking bench in one corner, with half-finished projects and tools carefully arranged. "You make things," Brooke observed, touching a partially carved wooden box. "I try," Warren admitted. "My grandfather taught me the basics. I'm not nearly as skilled as he was, but I find it grounding." "I understand that. Photography does the same for me, connects me to something real." The tour ended in the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Boston at night. Warren poured them each a glass of wine before joining Brooke by the windows. "What are we doing, Warren?" she asked quietly, the question that had been hovering between them all evening. "Getting to know each other," he replied. "Seeing if what we felt in the Berkshires holds true in real life." "And does it? For you?" Warren set his wine down, turning to face her fully. "It does, more than I expected, actually." "For me too," Brooke admitted. "But I'm still not sure how this works. Our lives are so different. They don't have to be." Seeing her expression, Warren quickly continued. "I don't mean you should change your life to fit mine. I mean we could build something new together, something that honors both our worlds." The sentiment was beautiful, but Brooke remained practical. "That's easier said than done. You live in this penthouse, run a billion-dollar company. I have a tiny apartment in Somerville and hustle for freelance work. And neither of those things defines who we are," Warren insisted. "I'm not asking you to become part of my world overnight, Brooke. I'm just asking for a chance to see if we can create our own." Put that way, it seemed possible. "I'd like that," Brooke said softly. Warren stepped closer, one hand coming up to cup her face. "So would I." Their kiss was different this time, deeper, more certain. Brooke felt herself responding with unexpected intensity, her arms wrapping around his neck as his encircled her waist. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "Stay," Warren whispered against her lips. "Not for anything you're not ready for, just stay with me tonight, talk until dawn. Let me make you breakfast in the morning." The invitation was tempting more than tempting. But Brooke knew herself well enough to recognize she needed time to process everything happening between them. "Not tonight," she said gently. "It's not that I don't want to. I just need to move a little slower, make sure this is real." Instead of disappointment, understanding filled Warren's eyes. "Of course, I respect that, Brooke," he kissed her forehead. "May I see you tomorrow, perhaps brunch?" Brooke smiled, touched by his response. "Brunch sounds perfect." The following weeks developed into a pattern: dinners at neighborhood restaurants, weekend outings to museums or parks, gradually learning each other's lives. Warren made efforts to step into Brooke's world, joining her at gallery openings for photographer friends, helping her scout locations for assignments. Brooke, in turn, gained glimpses of Warren's professional life, accompanying him to a charity gala, meeting his executive team during an impromptu office visit. What impressed her most was how he remained essentially the same person in all contexts: thoughtful, direct, occasionally wry, but always authentic. A month after their first official date, Brooke's photographs of Sullivan Haven were featured in a prestigious travel magazine, earning her significant professional attention. Warren hosted a small celebration at his penthouse, inviting both her friends and his business associates. "To Brooke," he toasted, raising his glass, "whose extraordinary talent brings beauty into focus for all of us." Later that evening, after the guests had departed, they stood together on the balcony, the city spread before them like a carpet of stars. "I'm proud of you," Warren said, his arm around her waist. "You earned this recognition." "Thank you for believing in me," Brooke replied, "for seeing potential in my work when others didn't." Warren turned her to face him. "I see potential in everything about you, Brooke Harper. In fact—" He hesitated, suddenly seeming nervous. "I've been thinking about us, about the future." "What about it?" Brooke asked, her heartbeat accelerating. "I know it's only been a month, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Warren took both her hands in his. "I'm falling in love with you, Brooke. I think I started falling the moment I dove into that pool after you." The words sent warmth cascading through her. "Warren, you don't have to say it back," he assured her quickly. "I just wanted you to know where I stand, how I feel." But Brooke didn't need more time. The truth had been growing in her heart for weeks. "I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted. "It terrifies me sometimes, how quickly this happened, how right it feels." Relief and joy transformed Warren's features. He pulled her into his arms, his kiss expressing everything words couldn't capture. That night, Brooke stayed. Their lovemaking was both tender and passionate, a physical expression of the connection that had been building between them since that first day at the pool. As dawn broke over the city, Brooke lay in Warren's arms, feeling a sense of rightness she'd never experienced before. Whatever challenges their different worlds might present, she knew with sudden clarity that they would face them together. "What are you thinking?" Warren murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I'm glad I fell into your pool," Brooke replied with a smile. Warren laughed softly. "So am I. Best business interruption of my life." In the weeks that followed, their relationship deepened. Brooke began staying at the penthouse several nights a week, while Warren occasionally spent weekends at her much smaller apartment, seeming perfectly content with her mismatched furniture and lack of building amenities. 3 months into their relationship, a crisis emerged that tested their bond. A major client threatened to pull out of one of Warren's developments, citing concerns about the design. The project was Warren's most ambitious to date, a mixed-use development that included both luxury components and affordable housing units, an unusual combination in Boston's competitive market. The whole project could collapse, Warren explained, pacing Brooke's small living room. Years of work, millions in investment, all at risk because some investor thinks the affordable units will devalue the property. Brooke listened as he detailed the situation, his frustration evident. "What will you do?" she asked when he finally paused. "The obvious solution would be to eliminate the affordable units. That's what my board is pushing for." Warren's expression hardened. "But I won't do that. This development was designed to be inclusive, to create community across economic lines." "Then don't," Brooke said simply. "Find another way." Warren looked at her, his expression softening. "You make it sound so straightforward. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying if anyone can figure out an alternative, it's you." Brooke approached him, taking his hands. "This matters to you. The principle of it. Don't compromise that." For several days, Warren was consumed by the crisis, endless meetings, late-night calls, strategy sessions with his executive team. Brooke gave him space, understanding the pressure he was under, but remained a steady presence, offering support without intrusion. When the solution finally came, it was unexpected. Warren invited Brooke to his office, excitement evident in his voice over the phone. "I think I've figured it out," he said when she arrived, gesturing to a display of photographs and architectural renderings spread across his conference table. "But I need your help." The solution, Warren explained, was to reframe the narrative. Rather than positioning the development as a luxury property with affordable components, he wanted to present it as an innovative community concept, where diverse housing options enhance the overall experience. "These investors respond to visual storytelling," Warren explained. "I need someone who can capture the human element, the community potential. I need you, Brooke. You want me to photograph the site, but it's not built yet. No, I want you to photograph the people, the potential residents, the neighborhood, the local businesses that would benefit. I want to show what this development means beyond real estate values." The project became a collaboration, merging Warren's business vision with Brooke's artistic perspective. For 2 weeks, they worked together, visiting the site, meeting with community members, crafting a visual narrative that transcended property values to focus on human connection. When they presented the revised concept to the investors, the response was overwhelmingly positive. The project was saved, with the affordable housing component intact. "We did it," Warren said afterward, pulling Brooke into an embrace in the privacy of his office. "We actually changed their minds." "You changed their minds," Brooke corrected. "I just helped them see what you already knew was important." Warren shook his head. "No, this was us together. Your perspective, your talent, it made all the difference." He looked at her with such intensity that Brooke felt it in her soul. "We're better together, Brooke, in every way." That night, as they celebrated their success, Warren grew unexpectedly serious. "This experience made me realize something important," he said, taking her hands across the dinner table. "I don't want to do any of this without you anymore." "Any of what?" Brooke asked, her heart suddenly racing. "Any of it. Work, life, everything." Warren took a deep breath. "I know it's only been a few months, but when you know, you know. And I know, Brooke, I want you in my life permanently." "Warren, are you?" "Not proposing, not yet," he smiled. "But I am asking you to move in with me. To make a home together, to see if what I already believe is true, that we belong together." Brooke felt tears welling in her eyes. "I believe it too," she whispered. "Yes, I'll move in with you." The transition wasn't without challenges. Merging Brooke's eclectic, bohemian style with Warren's more minimalist aesthetic required compromise on both sides. They eventually decided to renovate one of Warren's other properties, a brownstone in Beacon Hill that offered more character than the modern penthouse. A fresh start, Warren suggested. Something that's truly ours, not mine that you're joining or yours that I'm invading. The renovation became another shared project, with Warren handling the structural elements while Brooke focused on design and decoration. They created spaces that reflected both their personalities: a state-of-the-art kitchen for Warren's cooking hobby, a dedicated studio with perfect natural light for Brooke's photography, cozy shared areas where they could simply be together. 6 months after Brooke had fallen into Warren's pool, they moved into their new home. That first night, surrounded by a mixture of unpacked boxes and finished spaces, Warren opened a bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," he toasted. "To diving deep," Brooke added with a smile, referencing their unconventional first meeting. Later, as they lay in bed in their new master suite, Warren propped himself up on one elbow, gazing down at Brooke with an expression of wonder. "What?" she asked, touching his face. "I was just thinking about how quickly life can change," he replied. 6 months ago, I was a workaholic with a swimming pool and too many empty rooms. And now I'm still a workaholic," he admitted with a grin, "but one who's learning to balance life and work. One who has a reason to come home." The following year brought both professional success and personal growth. Brooke's career flourished, her association with Sullivan Properties opening doors while her talent kept them open. She maintained her independence professionally, insisting on being hired for her work rather than her relationship, though she and Warren occasionally collaborated on projects where their skills complemented each other. Warren, meanwhile, found himself evolving as a businessman. His experiences with Brooke, her perspective, her values, her way of seeing beauty in unexpected places, influenced his approach to development. Sullivan Properties began incorporating more community-focused elements in their projects, earning both praise and profitable returns. Their relationship deepened through shared experiences, holidays spent at Sullivan Haven with a growing circle of friends, challenging conversations that helped them understand each other better, quiet moments of connection that needed no words. On the anniversary of the day Warren had pulled Brooke from his pool, he suggested they return to the estate. "For old time's sake," he said casually, though something in his tone hinted at more significant plans. The estate looked much as it had a year before, though Warren had added a pergola near the pool, covered in climbing roses that were just beginning to bloom. "It's beautiful," Brooke commented as they walked the grounds, "though I confess being near that pool still makes me a little nervous." "You're not going anywhere near the water," Warren assured her, guiding her toward the new pergola instead. "I have other plans." As they stepped under the rose-covered structure, Brooke gasped. The space had been transformed with twinkling lights, scattered rose petals, and a small table set for two. "Warren, what is all this?" Instead of answering, he took her hands, his expression suddenly serious. "1 year ago today, I saw a woman fall into my pool. I didn't hesitate, I dove in after her without a second thought." His eyes held hers intently. "It was instinct, and every day since then, I've realized that loving you has become just as instinctive, just as necessary as breathing." Brooke felt tears gathering as Warren continued. "You've changed my life, Brooke Harper. You've taught me to see beauty in details I would have overlooked. You've challenged me to be better as a man, as a businessman, as a partner. You've shown me what it means to truly connect with another person." Slowly, Warren lowered himself to one knee, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "I've been diving deep for you since the day we met. I want to keep diving into life, into love, into everything the future holds." Will you marry me, Brooke? The ring inside the box was stunning, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, reminiscent of water and light. Yes, Brooke whispered through her tears. Yes, Warren, I will marry you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, Brooke felt a sense of completion, of rightness. Their beginning might have been unconventional, a near tragedy transformed into the most unexpected of meetings. But the journey since had proven that some connections were simply meant to be. Warren Sullivan had saved her from drowning that day, but in the year that followed, they had saved each other in countless smaller ways. And as they stood together under the pergola, surrounded by roses and promises, Brooke knew with absolute certainty that they would continue diving deep into challenges, into joy, into the beautiful life they were creating together. The wedding took place the following spring at Sullivan Haven, the hotel that had played such a significant role in their relationship. The ceremony was held on the lawn overlooking the mountains, with just 50 close friends and family members in attendance. Brooke wore a simple but elegant gown, carrying a bouquet of local wildflowers. Warren, dashing in a classic tuxedo, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle. Their vows, written by each of them, referenced their unusual meeting but focused more on the future they were building together, a partnership of equals, bringing different strengths but shared values to their life together. I promise to always dive deep for you, Warren vowed, echoing the sentiment that had become something of a personal motto for them both. To never stop exploring the depths of who we are together. And I promise to always see the beauty in our journey, Brooke replied. To capture not just the perfect moments, but the real ones that make our story unique. The reception was a perfect blend of luxury and warmth. Sullivan Haven's finest cuisine served family style, local musicians providing a soundtrack that ranged from elegant to joyful, and personal touches that reflected both their personalities. Instead of a traditional guest book, Brooke had created a photo station where guests could take and leave instant photographs with written messages. Warren had arranged for a master woodworker, a protege of his grandfather, to create small carved keepsakes for each guest, commemorating the day. As they danced beneath the stars, Warren held Brooke close. Happy, he murmured against her hair. Completely, she assured him, lifting her face for his kiss. Though I still can't believe this all started with me nearly drowning in your pool, Warren laughed softly. Best day of my life watching you fall in. You're terrible, Brooke scolded, though her smile belied her words. Just honest, he countered. Without that accident, who knows if we'd have ever really seen each other. It was a thought that had occurred to Brooke as well, how thin the line between their current happiness and a completely different path might have been. One different choice that day: if she'd been more careful by the pool, if Warren had been in a meeting rather than watching from his window, if he'd sent security instead of running himself, and they might never have connected. I'm grateful every day that you were watching, Brooke said softly. That you didn't hesitate to dive in after me. I always will, Warren promised, sealing the vow with another kiss. Their honeymoon took them to the Amalfi Coast, where they spent 3 weeks exploring ancient villages, swimming in crystal-clear waters, and simply enjoying the beginning of their married life together. Warren had rented a private villa overlooking the sea, providing both luxury and seclusion. It was during these unhurried days that they began seriously discussing their future, not just as a couple, but as potential parents. I want children with you, Brooke, Warren admitted one evening as they sat on their terrace, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. A family of our own. I want that too, Brooke replied, her hand finding his. Though I admit the idea terrifies me a little. What part? balancing everything: my career, motherhood, our life together. I've worked so hard to establish myself professionally." Warren nodded thoughtfully. "And nothing has to change about that. We'll figure it out together, find the balance that works for our family." He squeezed her hand. "I'm not my father, Brooke. I don't expect you to set aside your passions for mine or for our children. That's not the partnership I want." His understanding meant everything to Brooke. Throughout their relationship, Warren had consistently supported her independence, taking pride in her accomplishments rather than feeling threatened by them. It was one of the many reasons she had fallen in love with him. "Then yes," she said simply. "Let's start a family." They agreed not to pressure themselves, to let nature take its course while enjoying their first year of marriage. Upon returning to Boston, they settled into a rhythm of work and life that suited them both. Warren continued expanding Sullivan Properties, with Brooke occasionally contributing her photographic talents to special projects. Her own career flourished, with gallery showings and prestigious commissions filling her schedule. Their home became a gathering place for friends and family, the warmth of their relationship extending to those around them. Warren's previously limited social circle expanded through Brooke's connections in the arts community, while her network grew to include his business associates, who quickly recognized her talent and intelligence. 6 months after their wedding, Brooke was preparing for her largest solo exhibition, to date a series exploring the intersection of natural and built environments that had been 2 years in the making. The week before the opening, as stress and excitement mounted, she began feeling unusually tired and queasy. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Warren observed one morning as she picked at her breakfast, unable to face the eggs she normally enjoyed. "Maybe you should postpone the opening." "Absolutely not," Brooke replied firmly. "I've been working toward this for too long. It's just pre-show nerves." But when the symptoms persisted for another week, even through the successful gallery opening, Brooke finally agreed to see a doctor. The news, when it came, was both unexpected and perfectly timed. "I'm pregnant," she told Warren that evening, a mixture of shock and joy in her voice. "About 8 weeks along, according to the doctor." Warren's response was immediate and emotional. He swept her into his arms, his eyes suspiciously bright as he held her close. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby." The pregnancy brought new dimensions to their relationship. Warren, to Brooke's amused exasperation, became even more protective than usual, researching everything from prenatal vitamins to childbirth techniques, accompanying her to every appointment, insisting on hiring extra household help to ease her workload. "I'm pregnant, not incapacitated," Brooke reminded him after he attempted to carry her up the stairs one evening. "Women have been doing this since the beginning of time." "Not my woman," Warren replied, unrepentant. "Not with my child. Indulge me a little, Brooke." She did, understanding that his protective instincts came from love. And in truth, as the pregnancy progressed, she appreciated his support more than she'd anticipated. When morning sickness hit hard during her 2nd month, it was Warren who held back her hair and brought her ginger tea. When fatigue overwhelmed her during the 4th month, he rearranged his schedule to handle the household management she typically oversaw. At 5 months, they decided to find out the baby's sex. "A girl," the ultrasound technician announced, pointing to the screen where their daughter's profile was clearly visible. Warren's grip on Brooke's hand tightened, and when she looked up at him, she saw tears in his eyes. "A little girl," he repeated, voice thick with emotion. "A daughter." That evening, as they lay in bed discussing names, Warren grew contemplative. "I want her to have what I didn't," he said quietly. "Presence. Parents who are there, not just physically but emotionally." "She will," Brooke assured him, placing his hand on her growing belly where their daughter occasionally made her presence known with gentle kicks. "We're not your parents, Warren. We're writing our own story." As Brooke's due date approached, Warren surprised her with yet another property, a country home not far from Sullivan Haven in the Berkshires. "For weekends and summers," he explained. "A place for our daughter to explore nature, to create memories like the ones I had with my grandparents." The gesture touched Brooke deeply, understanding the healing it represented for Warren, creating for his child the experiences that had been the brightest spots in his own childhood. Their daughter, Emma Grace Sullivan, arrived on a snowy February morning after a relatively straightforward labor. Warren stayed by Brooke's side throughout, his steady presence a source of strength and comfort. When the doctor placed their daughter in Brooke's arms, time seemed to stop. Emma was perfect, a tiny bundle with Warren's dark hair and what already seemed like Brooke's determined expression. "Hello, little one," Brooke whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." Warren sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Brooke, the other hand gently touching his daughter's cheek. "She's beautiful," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Like her mother." The first months of parenthood brought challenges they hadn't anticipated: sleepless nights, breastfeeding difficulties, the constant adjustment of balancing infant care with their own needs. Yet through it all, their partnership deepened. Warren proved to be a natural father, as comfortable changing diapers at 3 a.m. as he was negotiating million-dollar deals in the boardroom. Brooke found herself recalibrating her career expectations, not abandoning her photography, but adjusting its pace and focus. She began a new project documenting Emma's first year, not the polished portraits typical of baby photography, but honest, sometimes messy images capturing the reality of new parenthood. The series, when eventually exhibited, resonated deeply with viewers and critics alike. As Emma grew from infant to toddler, her personality emerged: curious, determined, with Warren's analytical mind and Brooke's creative spirit. Their home, once an elegant showcase of design, transformed to accommodate toys, finger paintings, and the occasional wall drawing that escaped parental supervision. On Emma's second birthday, as they celebrated with a small party at their Berkshire home, Warren pulled Brooke aside. "What do you think about giving Emma a sibling?" he asked, his expression both hopeful and cautious. "Not immediately, but sometime in the next year or so," Brooke smiled, having had the same thought herself recently. "I think Emma would make an excellent big sister." 6 months later, Brooke discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the journey felt different, still miraculous, but with the confidence of experience supporting them. When their son, William Robert Sullivan, arrived the following summer, their family felt complete. As the children grew, Warren and Brooke found a balance that worked for their family. Warren restructured Sullivan Properties to allow him more flexibility, delegating day-to-day operations while maintaining strategic control. Brooke established a studio in their home, allowing her to continue her career while being present for their children. They divided their time between Boston and the Berkshires, creating traditions in both locations. Winters brought sledding and snowman building in the city, followed by hot chocolate in their brownstones kitchen. Summers meant hiking, swimming, and stargazing at the country house, with Warren teaching the children about constellations just as his grandfather had taught him. 5 years after that fateful day by the pool, Brooke found Warren sitting alone on their terrace one evening, gazing thoughtfully at the city lights. The children were asleep, the house quiet around them. "Penny, for your thoughts," she said, sliding onto his lap with the easy familiarity of deep love. Warren wrapped his arms around her, drawing her close. I was just thinking about how completely my life has changed since you fell into it literally. Having regrets. Brooke teased, knowing the answer. Only that I didn't find you sooner. Warren pressed a kiss to her temple. Do you ever think about how close we came to missing each other? If you hadn't taken that assignment, if I hadn't been home that day. But I did, and you were, Brooke reminded him. And you didn't hesitate to dive in after me. Best impulse I've ever followed, Warren murmured against her hair. I'll never stop diving deep for you, Brooke Sullivan, not for as long as I live. As they sat together under the stars, surrounded by the life they'd built, Brooke reflected on their journey from a near tragedy at a millionaire's pool to this moment of quiet contentment. Their story hadn't been without challenges, but those challenges had only strengthened the bond between them. Warren Sullivan had indeed saved her from drowning that day, but in all the ways that truly mattered, they had saved each other. And they would continue doing so, diving deep into life's joys and sorrows together for all the days to come.